We have Keith and we have Ben in the house,
Hi.
and they are all here loud and clear. Okay, listen. So I want to get right into some talking, and then we have a great video that I saw you playing. I saw it on Facebook, and I thought, wow, that's very well done. We got to show that. That's entertainment. So let me just first kind of let you know what we're doing here. Um, we're not trying to raise money. We're not trying to get any kind of notoriety or anything like that. What we're doing is understanding there's a lot of people sitting in their house that are confused and stressed, depressed, and we want to give them a happy hour, right? So we just want to like bring everything that us musicians bring to the stage. We want to bring that to them, but then some background information too. So I'm going to be prying into your lives for a few minutes. I want to get the goods so that when people go see your next live show, they feel like they know you, right? So,
Cool.
first of all, our relationship started, and the way that I got to know you was that you had offered to give a song that, because I had a hard time, I used a cover song on a video, Blackbird, that I was trying to play at a fundraiser for Carly's Cause, and they blocked it.
Oh boy.
Copyrights, the thing that protects us musicians. It's very important. But at the time, I really didn't mean no harm. I was just showing pictures of kids, and then you guys came out and just offered this beautiful song, and I went, "Who is this band? Oh my God, they're incredibly talented musicians. I love it." So tell me, when did you guys form?
We formed back in 2010. Keith and I have been friends for a long time, since the early 90s. We were in another progressive rock band for probably close to 10 years.
Woo.
And then after that, we kind of kept in contact. I always seemed to reel him into almost every project that I was involved in afterwards, every album project, every band project. And then during that time, we just talking the whole time about trying to come up with some original material and release something, just, you know how it is, throw some spaghetti against the wall and see if anything sticks.
Right.
And so we ended up forming Pet Shark, which is, we originally came together with five guys. So we were originally going to be a five-man band, with singer and keyboard player and, another bass player. But we soon found ourselves, just the two of us standing there going, what are we going to do now, after everybody left? And after that first band meeting, because for whatever reason, the other three guys just couldn't be a part of the project. And so we ended up just sitting in my home studio and writing that first album. And we had no idea who we were or what we were going to do. And
Hmm.
we just said to each other, why don't let's just play what comes out and see how it goes, And so we released the record in November of 2011, and we still didn't even have a bass player. We asked Matt Bissonette to be the bass player on that album. Uh, and if anybody knows Matt's just a phenomenally great bass player. And he and I did a couple of gigs with him in the past, and we were friends. And so I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to do, well, he's done both albums actually, but he was kind enough to do that first record. And then we ended up asking around, and we found a bass player. We got asked to do the NAMM show in January of 2012, and at an all-star jam. And we were told that we had a chance to play 3 songs during that show. So that was our debut coming out kind of a thing.
That's amazing.
And
And what a
yeah,
way to come out at NAM. I mean, come on.
yeah, it
Your
was
entire
cool.
audience is right there.
Yeah, it was very nice to be asked to be a part of that, and it was kind of neat, seeing some of our heroes standing out in the audience, which was kind of crazy. But everybody's the response to just, well, we ended up getting cut to 2 songs, and crazy enough, the response to that first outing was just phenomenally good, and which we were just so grateful. And then the ball was rolling. We now had a bass player. And at the time, it was Russ Reshaw who had joined us. And Russ Reshaw, incidentally, was with us for a long, long time after that as well. But that's kind of how the whole thing started.
So, what have you released after that first album, your debut album? I mean, you've obviously at some point you went out and played and did a bunch of gigs and then thought, time to write again.
Yeah, Carnivore Cruises came out in October of 2018. That right, Ted?
That's correct.
And Mike Keneally co-produced it and played on it.
Awesome!
Yeah, he plays some acoustic guitar, some electric guitar, a bunch of keyboards, and helped with the orchestrations, and does a little vocals on there, even some harmonies on one of the songs. And you know, for those that have never heard us, we're primarily an instrumental band, and our influences range from Rush, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Dream Theater. You know, things like that. Something, you know, a lot of the instrumental progressive stuff, but there was one song with vocals that we did, and it was actually Chris Yagic, who is Ted's son-in-law, and he's a phenomenal musician, and he ended up singing on that one song that we have vocals on. So
That's great.
Yeah.
So Keith, I noticed you're wearing a Winery Dog shirt, and I just had an interview last week with Billy Sheehan, so that's like so timely. And tonight I'm sporting Mr. Rhodes myself.
right on. And
Yeah.
Billy is such a cool guy. What a sweet man.
He's incredible.
We got to do a couple of shows, direct support for the Winery Dogs.
Amazing.
Obviously, both of those shows were completely sold out, standing room only. And
Yeah.
what an honor it was to actually open for them. This Telecaster I have back here is signed by Richie Kotzen. I got to hang out with him and Billy after one of the shows. So that was for me that was a really fun, great night.
I met Richie at NAMM this year, but he remembered me from when I met him after a show before, and he gave me a signed CD, and then he leaned in and said, "This is where there's a private party." I'm like, yay, because I told him, I'm like your #1 fan, you guys. I walk around doing everything Winery Dogs. So he's like, okay, she can go. She's kind of cute. It tells me where there's this party at NAMM. Unfortunately, I could not go. I had to leave that night. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I had to find this out today. You weren't here yesterday, you know, because I had been there for 3 days and it was time to go home. You know how it gets after 3 days at NAMM.
Yeah, well, I worked 5 days even before NAMM opened. As a consultant for Traveler Guitar, I designed guitars for them, and so I was there 5 full days, standing on my feet, and then going to meetings afterwards. You know, for anyone who's ever been to NAMM, you know, it can be pretty exhausting.
It can be.
But for me, it's all about
amazing.
yeah. For me, it's all about the people. It's all about the relationships. People I look forward to seeing each year. You know, one of them, Mike, came up and surprised me in the booth. Got to see Mike and Jeff Coleman walked up to me at the same time in the Traveler booth, and that was pretty cool. So,
Yeah, I went up and saw you at the Traveler booth.
yes, you
And
did.
I saw that pink guitar.
I know. I hope that you end up with that one
I
day.
hope well, I mean, the world's frozen right now.
It is frozen. Everything's shut down.
Let it go.
I know.
We're living in frozen. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about 65 Roses, because that song is incredible. And here's what I'll do, because I didn't have it planned to stream on this show today, because I want to show the videos that you guys wanted me to show. But I'll put it up on the Groove Entertainment Facebook page. You just put @Groove Entertainment, and you can be watching this live stream. Also, you can see replays will be parked on that page for quite some time. I will go and I will post that Carly's Cause video that you guys let me use the song for, because that was really nice of you. You kind of saved our moment there. We were really stressing out that the one song that I felt that I actually lined everything up for fell through, and then I heard your song, and that cello was beautiful, and just everything about it was very sincere, and it matched the cause and it matched the kids. It was a song that you could feel was meant for kids. that I felt that. So tell me
That, I'm
a little
glad
bit
that
about
you,
that song.
yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that because for me personally, it was a very emotional song. 65 Roses is, in the 1960s, there was a young boy who had cystic fibrosis. And he had a conversation with his mom, and he couldn't say cystic fibrosis, so he said 65 roses. He said, Mom, I know I have 65 roses, because she was doing charity work for that. And at the time in the 1960s, the children only lived to be about 7 or 8 years old. And now it's extended into 30s and 40s now.
Right.
And my daughter was born with cystic fibrosis. So when we wrote that song, Ted and I actually had in mind that we hope this gets used for some charity causes. We literally, as we were writing it, that was our intent, that it would be used for charity causes. So when you posted that you were looking for a song, that's why I hit you back right away and said, we'd be honored if you'd use this. We would love for this to be used for a cause, especially, it's funny that you would say for children, because
Right.
that was the idea. And it was a really emotional song to create. Mike had a big part in a lot of the ebb and flow of the song melodically with the keyboard stuff that he laid in there. And the guitar solo, the outro guitar solo on that song was really emotional for me to create. And in fact, when I got done writing it and I got done recording it, I literally had tears running down my eyes when I sat my guitar down, thinking about my daughter as we were creating it. But Ted, I don't know if you have any more you want to say on that, or Mike.
Yeah, that no, it was. I just would mimic what Keith said. You know, it's just a very emotional tune to write as we came up with it, and we really wanted it to be the end song on the album, and we loved the fact that, you know, I started out, you know, with some percussion instruments. You know, in fact, the djembe sitting right behind me here is the djembe that I played on that song, and but it starts out with that, and then it comes into very basic. It's very, very basic, very, very sparse, but it's really a slow build kind of a song, you know, as you already know. And yeah, and when Mike came on board, it really became, in my opinion, that much better. And because he added the little flute, the flutes, the piano section,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and it just turned into this really beautiful song, and as it was intended, and it just yeah, we're really, really proud of it, and really grateful that we had a chance to work with Mike on that song.
Well, here's what ended up happening. The parents of the children that were in the main video, because it could only be 2.5 minutes, the parents of those children had me recreate it. Okay, so they had me recreate, adding, I mean, of the other kids. So I ended up doubling up on the song and making a big, long video that I tried to feature all the parents who requested in it, so that they could have a copy of it for themselves. And
Great.
then I made one that was full, like the full length of the song without cutting it short, for the DDX3X Foundation, in case they needed to show the children around the world to get donations. And they ended up, you know what, they ended up getting the Zuckerberg grant for
Oh, great.
$400,000. They did. They got the Zuckerberg grant. I'm really happy for them. They're now able to fund the research on a higher level. You know, Carly's Cause is working on that too. But again, the world is frozen, so we're just going to party tonight. So we haven't heard anything from Ben yet. So my last question before we go into your video is going to be, so at what point did you guys bring Ben into this little trio of yours?
That actually came through Mike. We had a show scheduled, and Russ wasn't available to play. It was at a Lucky Strike in Hollywood, and so we were in the middle of recording the last album, and we asked Mike, "Hey man, do you got somebody you could recommend? How about Brian Beller?" You know, and Mike hit Brian Beller. We hit Travis Larson band. I forget her name.
Ken.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she's an outstanding bass player, but no, none of them were available. But then Brian recommended Ben, and we met Ben, and we had like 3 days until the rehearsal, and then another 5 days to do the show, something like that. It was like just a week, about a week, and our material, it requires a little bit of woodshedding, a little bit of homework, especially I think for the bass, because Matt Bissonette, who played all the bass tracks, is just outstanding. Well, Ben came in just a few days and blew us away, just totally blew us away. And eventually, it was just we were ready to make the change. We love Russ, great player, great human being, but Ben was just the fit, the right time, everything. And he agreed to come in. And I don't know what he was thinking, but he said yes. So
Well, he said yes before I even asked him.
How do you feel about that, Ben?
I mean, so yeah, no, it was an enormous amount of material to learn, and it was yeah, it was daunting, but it was a cool challenge. And I'll be super honest, the fact that Mike asked Brian and Brian recommended me sort of gave me the impetus to really do the homework as hard as I could. So that lineage it just felt good that those guys like that were thinking of me. So I learned the stuff, and it was fun, and these guys are cool and sweet, and when they decided they wanted to make the change, I was like, yeah. I like playing a lot of notes.
Ben, I met you at an Ultimate Jam.
Yep.
At the Whiskey.
Yep, I haunt that one. Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah, and that's when we were talking. I added you on Facebook. I just added everybody, but I was having a lot of fun going up there quite a few times. If people in San Diego haven't gone to an Ultimate Jam night, come on.
It's a fun hang.
It's a Tuesday night. It's the best Tuesday night event in Southern California. All right, so we would like to go ahead and play a video. Now, you gave us 2 videos. Which one would you like us to feature first?
I guess we could start with the one that you originally wanted me to send, which was the brand new one, and it's just a 2-minute. And honestly,
you got to say the title for Ashley.
Okay, so the title of the song, it's called Sensory Ocean, and I wrote the tune just to honestly I bought this brand new. I bought this thing called a flat top cajon. This is it right here, where you smack it on the top, right? So I thought, I don't want to just play it to. I'm not going to play it to just some stock music out there. I thought I can write my own piece for this, So I came up with a little 2-minute, small little song, and I showed it to Ben. I actually sent it to Ben first, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" He's like, "I really like it." And he goes, "I could hear Chapman Stick on this song," and so I was like, "Okay, cool." So then we scheduled some time at my home studio, and that's what you see in the video.
Okay.
Was that first session, that opener, and then after Ben's part was done, I sent it over to Keith, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he was like, "I want to play on that," So, so I was like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." So he ended up laying down his lead guitar part at his home studio, and then sent it over. And then I showed it to my son-in-law, Chris Yagich, who ended up doing. He actually did the entire video, basically. I mean, it was a collaborative effort. I showed him what I had done first, and then he kind of added his flair to it, and we wound up somewhere a little more on his side of things, which is far better than I could have done.
All right, well, let's cue up this video. Come on,
That's it.
Ashley,
It started out as a cajon video.
Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go right into your next video, which Ashley, go ahead and play that. We'll do a double music thing while I work something out here, and then we'll get back and I'll talk to you more about that second.
Shark.
Via Sonrisa.
Hey, what about that kind of show? Okay, we're gonna have some technical conversations about that. Yeah.
Cool.
What is that technique that you were using on finger pick? Because I was watching where your finger positions were, and I was only seeing you use these 3 fingers, like, but they were jamming.
You must be talking to Ben, the guy with
I
the
am
good
talking
hair.
to Ben. Ben.
Oh, yeah?
I said
What was
Ben.
that?
Yes, you.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
watching your fingers. I was watching what you're doing. You were only using. I saw you were only using 3 fingers on that.
On the right hand? Yeah, on the right hand I use 3, yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't sound like you were using 3. That's what I'm
Oh.
saying. Like it sounded
Thank
like
you.
you were using 4 fingers, kind of like Billy
Yeah.
does, because you were just.
It's 3, and I mean, if I'm honest, I totally studied Billy Sheehan for that.
Exactly. Yeah, and what a great solo, Keith. My God, that was incredible. So,
Thank you.
you guys, and drums, well, all right, so now I'm going to have to add Ted to one of my favorite drummer lists. I'm very, very, I like great drummers. I like to play with great drummers. I like to watch great drummers.
Ted's a beast.
He's a beast.
He's
I'm
the
gonna
beast.
add to the favorites, yeah.
Oh,
Well, the drummer is the reason the band sounds great, right? You can have an amazing guitar player, and if your drummer just isn't in it, then
Your band is as good as your drummer.
your band is as good as your drummer.
Yep.
It's just absolutely amazing. Hey, Luke, we're gonna bring you back in a few minutes. We're gonna do some tech talk. Are you guys gonna be down for that?
yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So, but first, we are gonna go ahead and switch on over and bring on our guest of honor. If I'm gonna go ahead and mute you guys, and if we could bring on Mr. Mike Keneally. Hold on. And start video. Ashley, could you start his video? I had stopped it. And oh no, what did I do? Ashley? Mike, if you could just look down on your screen and restart your video. There we go! That's just making me
Oh
wait.
no, technical problems.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't look right to me. I'm not sure why.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, Mike. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to bring back the guys in just a few minutes. We are going to interview now with Mike Keneally. So
Nice
how
to
are
meet
you doing, Mike?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Cheers.
Oh, definitely. Cheers. I got my wine glass here.
Take.
Clink. Looks like you got a red wine. What kind of red you drinking there tonight?
This is, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. It's spelled QU. It's from the Andes 2018 Cabernet.
Okay, that's awesome.
I pronounce it Qu.
I picked up a bottle. I talked about it one last week. It was a Pinot Noir, but it's one. I know you like Pinot Noir.
Sure. It's hard to find a wine I don't appreciate or at least respect.
This one is called Bread and Butter, and I know I've mentioned it on the show last time. But it's wow.
They're paying you, aren't they?
No,
Okay.
no. But earlier this week, also, I found a Cabernet Sauvignon that was the McBride sisters. And I didn't drink it on the show, but I did have a glass afterwards right before bed, and that was delicious.
Nice.
Any Irish women who have a winery are friends of mine, especially to make a Cabernet like that.
Nice.
So listen, we have one live video.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that if you want to talk for a while and then show it because
Sure,
you just
that's
showed a
what
video,
I'm gonna do.
whatever
Just
you.
showed those, and I was gonna say I'd like to save it for a little while. So
Sure.
what I want to do for tonight, everybody who does not know who Mike Keneally is, you should know who Mike Keneally is. He's one of the most talented musicians that has come out of San Diego. He grew up here, and we're very lucky to have talent like this. But it's a lot more than just talent. It's talent, dedication, and luck.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a story.
Yeah,
of
you're definitely right about the luck part. But,
yeah. And once you get lucky once, the offers come in. I learned that from Greg Douglas earlier this week. But listen, let's talk about the very beginnings.
All
You
right.
know, you started playing music according to your bio at about the age of 5. You're listening to the Beatles, and you started to really fall in love with the Beatles and the sounds of music, and something in you knew that that was what you wanted to do.
I think my parents knew it before I did because I was a freak about the Beatles, but I didn't necessarily know that that meant I was supposed to be a musician. But it was for my 7th birthday that my folks gave me an electric organ for this. And as soon as I saw it, I realized, wow, this is what I'm supposed to do. It just made sense to me. And then when I was 11, for my 11th birthday, I got a guitar,
Woo!
which grew out of the love of the Beatles. And most of the music that I was crazy about was guitar based. But I also, since it's kind of a progressive rock oriented show, it was actually Emerson, Lake and Palmer that made me crazy about the organ.
Really?
When I was playing stuff on the organ for 2 years, but then when I was 9, I heard Tarkus by ELP, and I didn't know that you could be that crazy on an organ, So that like proved to me that organ was cool, which hadn't really been demonstrated to me yet. And then I started.
Progressive rock was in you right from an early age.
Yeah, I got ensnared very early on, and I just like was hungry for music that had a lot of information and was unpredictable.
That's
And
what I love. That's why
yeah,
I love progressive rock for that exact reason. I've just never been able to describe it like you just did. That was beautiful. We need to put that on a Mike Keneally painting.
there you go. Well, I know the man to
One of the
do it. Um, but yeah, and then I heard Zappa also for the first time when I was 9, and I just got more and more excited about guitar. So got a guitar when I was 11, and just sort of I had organ lessons when I was growing up, but I never had any guitar lessons. And I would like learn something on the organ and then try to show it to myself on guitar as well. But most of my guitar training was just learning stuff off of records really painstakingly to the expense of all other social activities. While all my friends were actually, going out and having a good time, I spent an entire summer when I was 16 learning every Gentle Giant guitar part. That was how that was my idea of a good time, actually. And
It is a good time.
yeah, it really
That's
is.
a good time.
Yeah.
So, how did you start to develop your style? What were some of the early things that you did to develop your personal style on guitar and on organ and piano and keyboards?
I think any style is sort of pieced together from your influences. So I just taught myself to learn a lot of songs that I loved, and I guess it's this filtering down process that takes place over the course of years. You learn enough songs, and you focus on enough other players and the way they do what they do, and some things get caught in the filter, and some things go through, and the things that go through are generally the things that you love the most or that speak to you the most. And I think that certainly I hear a lot of Zappa's phrasing in my playing, but I also hear the way Todd Rundgren and Brian Wilson write songs, and I hear rhythmic things from Sly and the Family Stone, and then I hear just like a general textural approach from Miles Davis, and all of this stuff that just kind of all combined. But then if you keep at it and keep doing it long enough, gradually the influences start to wait in the wings, and you're left with your style. And it's I don't think it was ever like a conscious thing. This is what my style is going to be. It was really just learning a bunch of music that I loved,
Mm-hmm.
and stirring up a big pot of soup, and 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 what I'm left with now after all these years is I think something that's me. But
Right.
it's a process that takes a long time. It's a rare musician that just like comes out of the chute with a style that is uniquely them. That does exist, that kind of crazy magic that occurs with
Mm-hmm.
some players. But I think in my case, I just needed to really bear down and study the styles of a lot of musicians that I loved, and the main components are probably Zappa and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Rundgren, and then some really weird stuff like Captain Beefheart and the Residents and Henry Cow, and then later on John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Joni Mitchell is in there too, because I love a lot of different kind of music. Some really just hardcore funk stuff. Sly Stone is obviously huge. Um, and then just like weird quirky stuff like They Might Be Giants. It all gets filtered through, and I end up with I'm the sum total of all these bizarre influences.
So to get as good as you are, did you expand on getting lessons from multiple styles of teachers? Are you self-taught? How many hours did you put into rehearsing? Because
Um,
okay, for anyone who hasn't seen Mike Keneally play, if you did, you would want to know this answer if you're a musician. You do. You want to know how do you get from where I'm at now, or from where you're at now to where he is, which is he's on this different astral plane as far as musicians go, and very
Thank you.
well respected because of how much he has developed his craft. So we need to know what we could be doing during our quarantine
Oh,
to develop our craft.
well, like I said, I only was taught on keyboard. I had an organ teacher named Fran Morris, and she, because her curriculum was all like music from the 30s and 40s. That was my grounding. And if you go back to popular music from that era, it's really complex harmonically. The chord progressions are really dense. So I got used to the sound of clusters and the idea of chords moving from chord to chord in a kind of an unpredictable way. And also because I started on organ, I got used to the idea of doing multiple things simultaneously, because on organ, you're carrying a melody with your right hand, you're carrying the harmonic accompaniment with your left hand, you're playing bass with your foot, and then if you have a rhythm machine in your organ, then you've also got drums going on. So you're essentially a one-man band.
Yeah.
And so I think that was like hugely influential on me, was just the idea of covering a lot of stuff at once.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'll often play guitar and keyboard at the same time. Like I'll hit a chord on the guitar and do something on the keyboard, or I'll play a melody in unison or in harmony on guitar and keyboard, and then I'll be singing as well. And I think to some people that's like, what the hell, what are you doing? And but to me it just like came as a natural outgrowth, I think, from my grounding as an organist. And as far as just the amount of hours put in, for me it was teaching myself songs, and that was a pleasure. I got so much experience and so much knowledge from dissecting music that I really loved. Like I can't overstate how important that summer of learning, of doing nothing but learning Gentle Giant. I remember the day when I finally felt like I had learned all the parts, and I sat in my room and I played every Gentle Giant song from the beginning of their career to at that point the end, which was Giant for a Day, and just played every song straight through on the guitar along with each record. And that was a pivotal experience for me. And then teaching myself Zappa stuff was huge, especially later on when I got the opportunity to audition for Frank, and without realizing that I had been doing job prep all this time, I was just teaching myself how to play Zappa stuff because it was I loved it, and it was hard, and I knew that I would grow as a result of learning how to play that stuff.
Can you tell us about that call, or just the whole experience? I mean, I know it's a longer story. If we can have a little bit shorter one, because I want to talk about some of your other experiences too. Um, but tell us, how did you get that job?
I will do it briefly because it is a long story that I've told a lot.
It's a
But
great story.
I had just heard that he was in rehearsal with a new band. This was late 1987, and that was 3 years after he had sworn he would never tour again. And I was obsessed with Frank Zappa. At a certain point when I was a teenager, Frank rose above the rest of the pack and became the the musician slash composer that I was most focused on. And I always had dreamed of playing in his band. In fact, I called him in 1985 when he was in his office. It was announced that he would be taking calls, and I called him up and I said, it's been my dream, practically my whole life to play with you. And his response to that was, well, I'm never touring again, so keep dreaming. Um,
That's that's talk about dream over.
yeah, yeah. So obviously it was that much sweeter, a few years later when I actually, got the opportunity. So, and what it was just literally calling his office after I had heard that he was going to go back into, get a new band together and that he was in rehearsal with a new group. My first thought was, oh, cool, I get to see another Zappa tour. And then my second thought was, wait a second, I have to get real right now. This is probably the last tour he's going to do. And this is my last chance. And it was a chance that I knew I had to at least try to take. And it was the longest shot imaginable because I had no pedigree. I had no reputation. I was not a professional musician. I was playing cover tunes in bars in San Diego. I didn't have anything. And so, but I knew how to play his stuff. And so that was all I had. That was the only arrow in my quiver. So I called it up, hit the office, and a guy named Jerry Fialka answered, and I'm so grateful that he did and that he took me seriously, because I said, hi, I'm a big fan of Frank's and I can play his music on guitar and keyboard and I sing, and I'm familiar with all of his stuff, and I've taught myself to play a lot of it, and I don't know if Frank's looking for anybody, but here I am. And Frank called me himself the next day and said,
Wow.
I understand you can play all my music, which is a slight exaggeration from what I had said. But I said, well, I'm familiar with all of it, and he said, do you have any ideas? Do you have any idea how many songs that is? And I said, yeah, they're all in the next room. And he said, I don't believe you. Get your up here and prove it. I know we're not supposed to swear on this show.
Right.
So I did. I was in San Diego. The audition was in LA. I had my brother drive me up to LA while I sat in the back of the car playing every Frank Zappa song I could think of. I was freaking out, and at one point, my brother Marty pulled off the freeway so that he could turn around and look me in the eyes and say, "You're never going to be more ready than you are right this second."
Wow.
And there was something about the pure wisdom of that calmed me right the heck down. And he got back on the freeway and drove me, and I felt loose, and I had the guitar in my hand because I was playing in the car. I walked into the rehearsal studio with the guitar in my hand rather than carrying it in the case. And the first thing Frank said when he saw me was, "Hey, nice case." And then I just plugged in and I started playing stuff. He had told me on the phone a couple of things that he wanted me to learn. And then he just started calling tunes. And if it was something I hadn't played before, it was at least something that I knew so well that I was able to like call it from my memory and play it for him. And I could see that he was just getting a kick out of it. That the fact that in any song that he would name from his catalog, I would say, okay, give me a second, and I would just like figure it out. If not necessarily stage ready, at least demonstrate that yes, I am super familiar with this stuff. And if you give me like a half hour, I'll be ready to play this with the band or whatever. So at the end of the audition, which was just him and me and my brother in the room by the end of it, he said, well, you should come back on Monday so the rest of the band can witness your particular splendor.
Yay!
Was the exact quote. And that's actually the short version of that story. But yeah.
Well, you know what? My dad always told me, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And
if I hadn't made that call, and then I subsequently found out later that the week that I called, he had a keyboard player that he had dismissed from the group. And there was another guy who was a guitarist and vocalist who had left town suddenly, and so that was right when I called, when he was in need of a guitarist, a singer, and a keyboard player. And here's some guy coming out of nowhere saying, "I can do all that stuff, and I know all the songs." So there was definitely a little bit of kismet at play there. In some ways, I don't feel responsible, but I sure am glad I made that call.
Well, you know what? That makes me feel good because I mentioned offline with everybody today that I'd been sending Eddie Trunk a bunch of messages letting him know that I have an idea about how he can get that metal show back on the air. And I'm like, just call me. I'm really smart. Just call me. But maybe maybe he'll get the message and it'll just be my time. Of course, I'll get a message to him every day until he does call me.
Maybe he'll ask you to join his band.
Well, Eddie Trunk? How am I going to join his band? No, I want to be on that metal show. I want to co-host it. There, I put it out there.
There you go. Put it out in the world. That's very good.
Put it out. Yeah.
I would watch that.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so let's go down this train here. So obviously you met Steve Vai through Frank Zappa, and you went and
yeah. That was a daunting thing when Steve came to a rehearsal one day, a Zappa rehearsal, because it was a few years after he left the band, but he still cast a wide shadow over that position in the group. And I was a keyboard player who played guitar for fun, basically, and all of a sudden I'm playing guitar in Zappa's band, and then Steve Vai walks in the room. That was rough, but he was always very sweet to me and very, very complimentary. And then a few years later he asked me to join his group, which was a wonderful thing because we had so much in common. We're both from Long Island, the same general area in Nassau County where Satriani also came from, and Warren Cucurullo and John Petrucci. And I don't know what's in the water in Long Island as far as guitar players, but there's something happening there that's interesting and weird.
I'm from Weehawken, New Jersey.
Oh, there you go.
Not too far from you.
No, not at all. We're all pals. Weehawken.
Weehawken.
Yeah.
So I've actually, one of the first videos that I saw you on was the duel that you did with Steve Vai.
Oh, the Crossroads thing.
Yeah, like that was awesome. That was so much fun. But you guys were such entertainers. It wasn't just about playing your music. It was about synergy and connection and spirituality, And when you have that with other members of your band, you go to a higher level. You really.
That was a beautiful band. That was the band with Philip Bino on bass and Mike Mangini on drums, and then Dave Weiner also joined on electric guitar. But you're right. There was a real sense of family in that group.
There was something higher level in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just had so much fun. That was like 96 was when I joined Steve's band, and that was the very first thing that I did with him was the G3 tour with Satriani and Eric Johnson, and that video of the Attitude song where I was wearing huge hats back in those days, so I'm running around the stage in a weird business suit and an enormous hat. And it was just so fun. We had such a good time, man.
I absolutely love Steve Vai, and thank you so much. When actually you got the message out to Steve for me for Carly's cause, and he wasn't able to make it, and he sent us Jeremy Colson. How cool is that?
That was so cool. I loved playing with Jeremy at that show at the Belly Up.
Hey, there we go. I got a little light. And now I lit ghost white. Hold on, I'm adjusting. It's daylight that I'm relying on. So
you still have daylight there? Wow.
I do still have daylight. I don't want too much.
It's all gone here.
White. Oh, really?
Yeah,
well,
it's all gray outside.
Yeah, I'm at the beach, or close to the beach.
Jealous.
So, all right, I will talk about one more, and then I'll play the video, and then we'll come back to your musical history. But Brendan Small, Death Talk.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you sent me over his stuff, and because I knew I had parents of children. I was like, well, maybe not for this show, but I started listening to that stuff and I started getting into his cartoons and stuff. That is some cool stuff. Tell me a little bit more about what you do with Brendan.
Well, we he started that show, Metalocalypse, which just was a phenomenon, right? When that show went on the air, it just became enormous. And they put out an album of music from the show that was like the fastest selling death metal album in U.S. chart history, and for a cartoon, and it was because even though the show is kind of a satire and it pokes fun at celebrity and all this stuff, but Brendan loves metal and he takes the music really, really seriously. He pours everything he's got into the music. And so what you got was the fan base was based around people who love comedy, they love weird extreme animation, but they're also really into metal. And he put out an album of music from the show and it took off. So Adult Swim said, you need to put a band together. And I had met Brendan through MySpace.
MySpace.
That definitely puts a timestamp on this story.
Yeah.
And found out that he was a fan of mine when he was a student at Berklee College of Music in the mid '90s. I had come through Berklee to do a clinic. So I was in the Netherlands, and Sarah, who I'm now married to, who's downstairs as we speak, she said, "Oh, you should send Brendan a MySpace message." We were fans of his earlier show called Home Movies, which is a historically fantastic show. So I wrote to Brendan on MySpace and said, "Hey, my girlfriend and I love home movies, and I don't know if you know who I am, but we're big fans, and I just wanted to say hi." And he wrote back, and the first word in his message back was "dude."
Dude.
Yeah, and he goes, "Huge fan. You don't know this, but when you came through Berklee in 1996, I was a student, and you made a big impression on me when you came, and you were talking about your experiences, and you played Zappa and all this stuff. We should definitely get together." And then he said, "I'm about to start this new show, this goofy show about metal," which turned out to be Metalocalypse, which turned out to be huge. But we were hanging out. We were just, being pals. And then he says, I got to start a band. Will you be in this band with me? And I'm not a metal player. And he goes, you played Zappa. You can play anything. And so I had to kind of learn how to play what he was doing. Basically, I was the first overdub. That was my job, and Gene Hoglan on drums, who's phenomenon, unbelievable, influential, huge virtuoso of metal drums. And I got Brian Beller from my band into the group as the bassist. And we went out on the road, and we had this video screen hanging above us showing animation for the entire show. So we were linked to we were synced up with every visual. Everything that we played live on stage, there was a visual component on the screen. And audiences completely lost their minds. It was the most exhilarating thing to be playing for these laughing, moshing, crazy audiences. And the best tour was in 2009 when we went out and with Mastodon. They were promoting the Crack the Sky album, and it was just absolutely exhilarating every night. It was incredibly fun.
Yeah, playing death metal is.
Yeah,
How many of you would like to just play some death metal right now, just to get your frustrations out?
It definitely does that thing. It's just exhilarating. Exactly. It gets a lot out.
Okay, so
which now I've been touring with Devin Townsend, and it hits that same hits that same thing in your heart. But it also, Devin is like so varied stylistically. There, in one moment we're playing these brutal metal things, and then all of a sudden we're playing this gentle song that sounds like it's from a Disney musical. And Devin can do it all because his vocally he's just beyond belief. He can do anything he wants.
As soon as I saw you were touring with him, I started listening. Definitely a fan. Definitely. I'm gonna get different light here. Suddenly I'm
so much. There you go.
There. Now you.
There you go.
Hey, how are you? It's as the sun's going down, so is my hair from red to black. I didn't look bad with black hair though. All right, so we're gonna have Ashley play a live video so we can see some Mike Keneally live.
And this is yeah. Do you need me to say anything, or are we just going for it?
You go for it.
All right. This is my band. It's just called, at the time it was called Mike Keneally Band, but at other times it's been Mike Keneally and Beer for Dolphins, doing Kedgeree at the Baked Potato in 2010.
All right.
Introduction by Brian Beller.
All right. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Keneally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a ride that was, huh? That's like, let me off this carpet, we're coming in Berlin. Oh, that was incredible, Mike. How do you do that? That was both instruments, directing the band. Everybody in the band is phenomenal. All those musicians are absolutely.
Yeah, you ain't wrong about that, man. What a
Wow.
group. Thank you. You
Now
know,
I know why you get all the good jobs.
you just well, I don't. You just refuse not to. I guess to answer, in answer of your question, how do you do that? You know, you just hear things that you want to. I just try to do the stuff that I'm hearing. Is all.
I say this on every show, even, well, not the Wednesday shows because those are more for a different style of music, but every Friday night, there's a reason that I'm targeting progressive rock, right? Progressive rock is the answer to keeping music alive. Because if we can get our kids to learn how to play like this, they're not going to put out crap, right?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You know, it's like the time that I spent with the School of Rock, because I started working with the Paul Green School of Rock for a while, and I started the School of Rock chapter in San Diego back in 2007. And young players, you know, they're all coming in with Dream Theater shirts on. They're all, you know, they all want to shred, and they all want to play, you know, interesting, intricate stuff. And I think a lot of young players, and this will always be the case. I don't see it ever going away as long as, you know, the music still exists and is accessible for people to listen to.
As long as we keep promoting it. Now, hey, I've got some of your buddies. You know, we know that currently you've been touring with Joe Satriani, but you also did some writing and producing. From what I've seen from your GoFundMe page, you're going to be coming out with another album, and you helped to produce Pet Shark's album. They mentioned
Mr. Pet Shark, yes, indeed.
I would like to bring them on, and we can do some
do.
tech talk. Now, everybody who's listening, all we got is time, and this is good stuff, so hang in there, man. We're going to go ahead and bring Pet Shark back on and let these guys have, you know, a chance to discuss that video that we just saw, because they're musicians, and we want them to see it. And also to be able to talk a little bit about the album that you produced for them.
Good.
Hello.
Hi again, Pet Shark.
I loved the video, Mike. That was so cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I was rocking out here, man.
Man, if I wasn't at that show, I was at one show on that run.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I totally saw that. I remember that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
I'm giving you a round of applause right now.
Yeah, nice.
I think they all were sitting there in their houses going, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's, you know, honestly, Sandy, that's just so why we were so thrilled to work with Mike. Can I share a quick story of how we kind of got together?
Quick story,
Yeah.
and we got to get on to Tech Talk.
Okay, so Mike was playing in a band called Extreme Cream, and we were direct support for them. And prior to the show, we got word that, hey, you guys are gonna be jamming with these guys. And so we ended up being able to get up on stage and jam with them. And I ended up trading eights with Kofi Baker. We did a little drum solo together. And after the show was done, and I'm still sitting behind my kit, and Mike looks down at me over my cymbal and he goes, I really like your band. And I was just dumbfounded. I didn't even know what to say. I was just, other than thank you, you know. I was just like, oh my gosh, Mike Keneally likes our band. You know?
I gotta interrupt though. I gotta interrupt because then Ted asked Mike something, and I said, man, you got a pair to be asking him that. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, I asked him if he would be willing to work with us. And so we wound up in the parking lot after the gig, and that's when we had that conversation. And Mike was so cool, and he goes, I would be willing to work with it, but I'd really like to hear your guys' stuff. I would like to hear your demos first. So I sent him all of the demos that we had done for the Carnivore Cruises album up to that point. And we had actually written all the material already for the album. And he wrote me a really nice long email. I still have it, but he, basically saying how much he really enjoyed the music, and said, definitely I want to work with you. And so we were just so thrilled that I was just like, I was trying so hard to maintain my cool, just to be mellow, but I
Well,
was.
it's really good stuff, and it was definitely, along the lines of what you were saying, Sandy. It's it it called back in some ways to a lot of music that I grew up loving, but there was also a distinct personality to the way you guys write and the way you play that is just you. And it was definitely something that I felt good about, and also I was hearing things, things that I could help with, and so it just felt like a good natural fit, and I think that the results bear it out. It's a really great record. It's a really good album. I'm very glad that I'm involved in it.
Hey, Mike, we had a couple questions for you. One is from Ken Gladstone, and he's
Ken.
Lone Darts, Mike. Are
Yeah.
things contraband?
Well, they came from the UK. They were a gift from a dear friend from England, and they never leave the home. It's the world is safe.
And then we have from Tim Craig. He says, for Mike, is there a story behind the green Strat? It's obviously a favorite of yours.
Well, there actually is a story. It was in 1988 that I'd gotten off the road with Zappa, and I became friendly with a guy named John Grunder, who was introduced to me. I don't know if you know, Sandy, a local guy in San Diego named Dan Astor, who is you may have bumped into him on Facebook, but he's kind of a legendary figure, and I met him at the guitar shop that he was working at, and he offered to make the introduction for me to John Grunder at the Fender Custom Shop, and Fender was just very generous in giving me this, which was a Clapton Stratocaster in 1988. It was pretty early on. It's serial number 8, and
wow,
and it's just a beautiful instrument, and it kind of became I became known for playing this, and I've gone and played many guitars and had great relationships with Jackson and Charvel and Strandberg, and now I'm playing Framus and Kiesel, and beautiful people at all of these companies that have been really kind and supportive. But this kind of stands out, and as you see behind me, it's now immortalized, hanging here, thanks to Keith of Pet Shark, who painted this and presented it to me after a show at the Baked Potato. And I'm still kind of dumbstruck, but I was absolutely speechless when he walked up and handed that to me. I guess it was after the album was done, and
It was.
Yes.
yeah, and it was just this beautiful show of genuine appreciation, just this blessed gesture on his part. So thank you again, Keith, for painting this and making a gift of it.
It was an act of love, genuinely, Mike. And one of the things in the music industry, you get to meet a lot of people and see the personalities behind the scenes when nobody is looking. And for people that have been lucky enough to get a little bit into some of Mike's world, Mike is genuinely one of the nicest people in the entire music industry that I've ever had the honor of meeting, and I don't say that lightly. So
I agree. Me too.
Look, I want to do a cheers to you guys and to everybody at home, because this is live music happy hour, and we don't have Michelle Bailey here teaching drinks tonight. But
I wish my cup was
good
full.
white wine, and he has a really good red wine, and he has
Right.
and I'm not sure what you're drinking.
Bloody Mary.
He's got a
Nice.
Bloody Mary. He could have showed us how to make that.
I'm the guy drinking coffee. I got
I
nothing.
save that for when I go to the bar and I let someone else make them, But I like wine, so here we go, you guys. Cheers
Cheers.
to everyone at home. Now, the very last segment of the show, before we have Mike take it out with a song, is I have other musicians on here right now, and you've seen Mike, and he is a phenomenal musician, and we want to have you help pick his brain about different types of techniques that you've seen him use that he could demonstrate for people who are musicians watching the show. We just do this towards the end of every show just to kind of like connect with the musicians that are out there watching, because I mean, come on, we got nothing better to do but sit around and improve our craft. So we can go ahead and start with Keith, since you're also a guitar player. Can you come up with something that you think that Mike should explain to you how he does that? How does he do that? What is that?
Well,
there's not much that I do that Keith can't do as well. So I'm not sure what Keith is a spectacular player.
Yeah.
Actually, when we were recording the album with Mike, I mentioned to him there was an acoustic thing that he had done with an alternate tuning. I don't know if you're okay with that, Mike. I forget the name of the piece. It was something that I had just stumbled across on YouTube.
Was that the Desired Effect?
I think so. And it's just absolutely stunning and beautiful. And I'll just let Mike take it from there. The technique obviously is just phenomenal.
Well, I got to retune then. First of all, it's important to have one of these handy.
Yes.
Little dealy bobber. So, low string down to D, B string up to C. Don't break, don't break, don't break, okay? So basically that's the C major triad up top over an open D fifth on the bottom, which is a D11.
Yes.
And so, alternate tunings, it's always just about, it's like redesigning the floor underneath you, right? It's all of a sudden, all the rules have been changed because all your standard shapes don't make sense anymore. So it's just fun to see what different things you can do. And I don't usually deal with standard type of alternate tunings like DADGAD and stuff like that. I usually just like turning tuning pegs until something interesting happens and then seeing what I can make out of it. So in this case, I like the idea that I could do this really sort of ringing thing. It would be my pleasure to dive into the ocean, find a buried treasure, present it all to you. I'll sing away the pain, the chaos and the strain. No love by any measure could exceed my love for you. Now I haven't played it in a while, so let's see if I remember the next part. Oh yeah, it's... Okay, so... Technique-wise, what's happening here is I'm doing a moving bass line on the bottom, bum, bum, bum. But while that's happening, I'm also going... Wash me clean and make me whole when I get wrecked. Kiss my mouth and eyes, I beg you to protect. Give me the desired effect. So that's basically that.
Wow. Right.
I gotta practice that though. I haven't played it in a while. Also, it's really cold in here and my fingers are cold. And I only found out yesterday that I was supposed to be playing. I thought we were just talking.
Live music happy hour. So, Ben.
Yeah.
You've seen Mike several times.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what is one technique that you've seen him do that you would like to know about?
One of the techniques?
Yeah, it's tech talk.
It wouldn't be an instrumental technique. It would actually be a compositional technique, which is to just ask, man, how do you spit out that many records that are that both characteristic and unique to you and so varied and cool. Like, where do all those ideas come from?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's such a hard question to answer. Where do the ideas come from? Because I honestly don't know. I don't feel like they all generate from in here. I really do feel like that when I'm doing my job properly, I'm just, and it's a cliche and it sounds like, you know, cosmic balderdash, but you know, and I'm sure all of you feel the same way, that you're channeling something, and in my case, I love it so much. I love making music. I love recording. I really love making albums, and I consider it a real privilege to be able to make music. So whenever I have the opportunity to make an album or to work on a song, I seize it. And then the other thing that I think keeps me going and hopefully keeps the standard high, which I think is what you're alluding to, is that it's rare to find an artist, and this includes a lot of artists that I respect and love, where you can sort of like trace them throughout their career and see that they've kept the quality at almost any artist. You can start to sense a drop off around about decade 2 or 3, you know, where it just sounds like they're repeating themselves, and I like take. I don't ever want to put out an album where it's like, if you ever hear that Randy Newman song called "I'm Dead," where he talks about, you know, everything I do now sounds like something I already did, just not as good, and I, you know, I really don't want to be that guy, you know. I very much want people to listen to everything that I put out and at least sense that I've done my best to keep the quality level high. So that's important to me. And
we have time for one more. Ted, if you have one more technique you'd like to hear Mike do, then what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about some emails that we got, and then have you take us out with a song. So what do you got for Mike?
I guess mine would be more of an arrangement question, and that is, you know, I tend to write, or you know, Keith and I obviously have written all the Pet Shark material together, but I love to arrange music. And so what would you say is probably your biggest influence on arrangements, you know? Where do you think that arrangement prowess came from? Do you think it was from the Zappa days, or do you think it was just it's been a craft that you've honed throughout the years? I mean, as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's definitely it's informed by everything that I've listened to and loved, but it probably started by really digging into the Zappa stuff, because it's when you start like getting into music of that density, it could just turn into a mess real easy if somebody isn't like firmly in control. And he was somebody who, not just with the way he arranged things, but also the way he produced things, because you're dealing often with a lot of instruments, like when you've got guitars and synthesizers and vocals and, you know, loud cymbals on drum sets that all kind of exist in this same general mid-range area. You know, a pleasing recording, a good sounding recording, somebody has taken the time, either with the arrangement to keep, to the best of their ability, keep stuff out of other stuff's way, and also with the engineering to carve out the frequencies so that everything isn't just like 7K'ing you in the middle of the head all the time. And so it's really just this sculpting process of you start with a bunch of stuff, and it's subtractive as much as it is additive. It's like you figure out, okay, this is the minimum amount of elements that I need to get the point across that I want. I need to have 2 keyboards doing this, and I need 3 guitars doing this, and I need to have this many vocals doing this bunch of contrapuntal stuff, and then there's the bass part that's like dancing around the middle of it, and then there's, you know, drums holding it all down and providing orchestrational commentary here and there. and so you end up with like a big stack of things, and then you have to figure out what frequencies need to be taken away so that things have room to breathe, and then also don't be afraid to like carve away stuff that you loved when you thought of it, but that is getting in the way, in reality.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only way to hear that is to take time away. Like you've spent the whole night crafting this incredible arrangement that is conveying exactly what you want. But then you come back a week later and you say, well, this is just a big pile of garbage.
For sure.
And that's when
the rabbit holes. Right? Yeah.
And that's when you have to figure out, this is what I need to remove. The part of the eager composer / arranger's instinct at that point might be, well, if I just add this one other thing, it's going to be perfect. But in reality, you're just making life harder on yourself. And that's really the moment where you have to start thinking about what needs to be taken away, and I need to find the real song again and turn it into something that communicates.
So we are just about done with our show for tonight, but I want to encourage all of you guys to go onto the Facebook feed and answer any questions that may have popped up. I haven't been watching that, but I did catch all of the Q&As that we had here. Well, Mark Evans sent it. I was just going to talk about Mark Evans. Okay. So
hey, Mark.
Emails. Mark Evans, one of the things he said is he wondered if the Zappa band that you play in now would mind if you put together an album of acoustic renditions of Frank's songs on
That's a lovely idea.
Acoustic guitar.
I love that.
I know, I did too. I was like, wow, he's really, that's a very intuitive thing. That would be kind of amazing.
Well, I mean, we have to think of creative things to keep ourselves busy, and there's going to be a lot of projects that come out in the next few months that are born of home recording environments. And I'm just now getting my home recording rig set up, and it's I'll be able to do these kind of collaborations. And yeah, that's a nice idea, Mark. Maybe I'll have a word with the other lads in the band and see maybe we can cook something up there.
Okay, so then we have Cher. She just said thank you for having the show.
Aw,
sounds like
welcome, Cher.
Lady. So then we have Dave, who is all the way in Australia, I believe. Nope, no, he's not in Australia. Okay, so he says, I'm looking forward to the Keneally show. Could you ask Mike how about his long-awaited album, Scambot 3?
Oh, I'm afraid you'll be awaiting even longer, but because I think that I want to involve an orchestra with that album, and that's going to require some financing. But its ideas are brewing for that, but I have several other album projects that will happen before that does. But it'll come. It's definitely not. There was a time where I thought that maybe Scambot 3 would be my last album, so I wasn't in any hurry to get to it. But at this point, it's been several years since I put out an album, and I'm like eager to keep going and make a bunch of albums now, and I don't suspect that I'm going to want to wait forever to make Scambot 3. So, but there's lots of work to be done.
Well, listen, guys, this has been a lot of fun. An hour show. We went ahead and let it run for 90 minutes. I don't know if you noticed the time flying by. I didn't.
I never do.
Fly by. You know why? Because I'd much rather be doing this. So, Mike, we'd like for you to take us out, maybe with a message and a song, or just something that gives everybody hope as we're going through these trying times. Everything's so uncertain. Let's have some certainty.
Well, I'm just going to play a bit of a piece called Thanksgiving, which I haven't played in a long time, but I don't remember how to play it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to do a little bit of it, and this goes out to everybody, because in spite of everything, I remain just grateful for life and for the connections that we can form, like friends like all of you. It's been wonderful just hanging out with all of you, and everybody that's watching. Love you all. So thank you. I'm gonna take off my headphones so I can hear myself play.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, I think we're all back on. Oh, wait, Ted. There we go. Everyone's unmuted.
Yep.
All right, I want to thank all of you guys. Ashley, can you cue up my song? I want to give credit to our new intro and outro song goes to Kisag Solis, player on this. I want to thank Ken Sharp for coming and thank Mike Keneally. It's Friday for the
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Andy.
having us. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.